And I appreciate you guys putting together this type of forum to be able to ask the tough questions that I think we have a record over the last 4 years. We haven't dodged any of those. We've done some things that made some folks happy. We've done some things that haven't sat well with certain folks. But we're always up front, honest, transparent, and appreciate this opportunity. All of them.
All right. Just started off, I guess, with a general question. Why you're seeking another term? Why you feel you deserve another term?
Why am I seeking another term?
Yeah.
Sometimes I ask myself. Whenever a phone call comes in and there's an issue with somebody's sewer bill or whatever, you kind of ask yourself, why are we doing this again? No. In all seriousness, to me, being the mayor is not a job. To me, being the mayor is who you are. It's who you are. It's 24 hours a day. It's 7 days a week. It's when you go to church. It's when you go to the ball game. It's when you're at City Hall. So why am I doing this? To continue the progress. The campaign slogan of our campaign has been Sullivan's Comeback Continues. I don't think it's any secret over the course of the last 50 years that not just the city of Sullivan, but overall rural Indiana has seen a steady decline. But I reference that, or I compare that to your kids growing up. You don't realize that your daughter is now a freshman in high school until you look at her first grade picture. You don't see those changes. A lot of folks that have moved away from Sullivan and left Sullivan, they're the ones that can really tell the story. They're the ones that can really tell the story of a steady decline over the past 50 years, but they're also the ones that give us inspiration. There's nothing better than when a contractor that lives here in the city of Sullivan and that works all over the country comes back and says, Mayor, you know, the most exciting things that I see are every time I come home, there's something going on. Whether it's a sidewalk being poured, whether it's a street being blacktopped, you can see tangible results. A lot of mayors, you know, we talk about a lot of things, we have a vision, but why am I seeking a second term? To give the people of the city of Sullivan tangible results. For the first time in a long time, something to believe in again.
And what are some of the things tying in with that you think you have accomplished over the last 4 years that you have been mayor that would tie in with that particular sentiment?
Well, I'm very proud of a lot of things that we've accomplished. And when I say we, that's with the help of the city council, the clerk treasurer, the redevelopment commission, church congregations, and civic organizations. You know, I found this just last night when I was going through some files. These are the plans from 2011. These are the things that we set out to do. And I'll kind of go over these with you and tie these into our accomplishments. First thing, right off the top, and you can read this, we need to apply for a grant for a master plan for our city. This plan needs to be put together with input from every segment of our population. This master plan must include both our needs and our wants, our need to address our combined sewer overflow court-ordered mandate, excuse me, our need to finish our middle portion of Section Street project, our need to address our street and sidewalk deterioration, and other infrastructure problems. Just a few here that we listed, the projects we wanted to work on, was to work with our combined sewer overflow. We're doing that right now. United Engineering has been working over the last 3 years for our long-term control plan, a long-term control plan that was actually agreed to in 2006 when I served on the city council under the Bowles administration to start doing sewer separation, to put a 42-inch interceptor around the outside, a trunk line around the city. So those are things that we're working on every single day, literally as we speak. Here it says work with county officials to an upgraded farmers market pavilion. I think if you look at phase 2 of the Sullivan Central Plaza and all of our downtown planning, it's just that. Matter of fact, you've heard us talk about over the last few years, part of even the Civic Center itself has potential to have year-round farmers markets indoors. So, you know, we've done that. Here it says a need for a new or upgraded city pool. Well, we have been exploring potential for a pool. However, as a mayor, I've got to ask the residents of the city of Sullivan, do you want a pool? Is this something you want to do? And I want to keep in mind that we are 15 minutes away from Shakamak State Park, a swimming pool that is funded by state government. Terre Haute's getting ready to do a pool upgrade at Deming Park. They're doing an indoor pool in Terre Haute, which is a 30-minute drive. You saw in Robinson, Illinois, they had about a $1 million pool that they were getting ready to put in, which is now has exceeded $2.5 million for their pool. Another 25-minute drive. But the biggest one of all, Vincennes, Mayor Joe Yoakum, had just finished a $4 million pool upgrade. So does it make sense for us to compete with 4 major multi-million-dollar aquatic centers within a 15 to 30-minute drive? I don't know. That's going to be up to the people. If the people decide that they do want to pursue that, you obviously always want to try to secure grants and funding that way. But until you have a master plan, you don't qualify for grants. Until you become ADA compliant and have an ADA plan, which is what we're doing with the Paths to Progress, you can't qualify for federal grants and things like that. So part of this mayor's job is connecting these pieces. But so what we have been able to do is do some upgrades down in our pool. And we've talked to the park board about potentially, if we don't get a new pool, at least maybe do some new bathhouses and maybe tear those down and maybe do a shallow entrance into a new pool. So those are the things the park board's working on in conjunction with our office. Number 4, Central School demolition and utilization of the property. I think that's a major accomplishment. If you think back to January 1st, 2012, we walked into an office with $340,000 to cut in the general fund due to the property tax caps. We were still looking at a trash can with 4 stop signs in it at the intersection of Washington and Section Street. And 1 block south of our square, we had an empty parking lot that the city owned that nobody was parking in, was growing weeds, and quite frankly, nobody was paying taxes on. So when we go to, I call First Financial Bank corner, our corner, where you can stand there and visibly see 3 different accomplishments during our administration. Just from there, the Central School demolition. All hope had been lost. It was an abandoned school for about 11 years. It had rats, raccoons, rodents, drug paraphernalia. There were drug deals going on in there. There was criminal activity, all sorts of things. It was a huge detriment to our city. So it was bad in that sense. It killed property values in the surrounding area. But what it most importantly did, it killed the morale of the community. We were assigned the task from the people to do a cleanup, so to speak. And when we'd ask folks to clean up their properties, quite frankly, they'd look back at us and say, well, how do you expect me to clean up my property? You've got this big white elephant 2 blocks of the square that you can't take care of. So a lot of our critics said it couldn't be done. It couldn't happen. It's just going to sit there. There's nothing you can do about it. My little girl, Kennedy, came up to me and said, Daddy, you can't get a grant to tear down the school. Where are all the kitty cats going to live? So, I mean, I think right there it gives a sense that even a little girl, understood how bad the property was. So we secured a $441,000 grant through Okra. And if you remember, we did this with your help. We started with an ice cream social in May of 2012, just to bring awareness to how dilapidated the building was. Because as we've talked about, we've seen the city of Sullivan decline over a 50-year period, but we don't actually see it in front of our eyes. We didn't realize how bad the Central School was because when you're driving down the road, you don't always stop to take a look. But when you pull your car over and you get out and you have ice cream on the property, you definitely see how dilapidated and how hazardous and big of a safety issue that school was. So we had ice cream. We took your coverage from the ice cream social. We took coverage from Channel 10, Channel 2. Steve Tucker, a local artist, drew some drawings and renderings of what it could be. And the city of Sullivan moved from 16th on the list to 2nd in demolition money that year. And kind of off the record, I asked one of the folks that were working there, and I said, what's the difference? And they said, you had community support and you had a plan. You weren't asking for a handout. You weren't asking for a bailout. You had a vision and you had a plan. You were going to do something with the property. That's a major accomplishment. The Wolfe Street project. This is item number 5, Wolfe Street project. I think you've seen the completion of the Wolfe Street project. It wasn't the original scoped $6 million Wolfe Street project that we had hoped when we were going to apply for LPA funds through NDOT, but it's the first grinding and resurfacing since 1973, the first bicycle lanes ever in the city of Sullivan's history, And I think when you all travel to other communities, you start to see bicycle lanes. And it's a part of what millennials are looking for, and not just millennials, but even retired folks. They want these amenities. They want this quality of life. They want to be able to ride their bike. They like the good schools. They want to make sure there's no unsafe eyesores downtown. So the Wolfe Street project's not finished. That'll be in the spring of 2016. We will be doing the LED lighting through Duke Energy. We've done the road. We've got the bike paths in, and as of today, I'm proud of the fact we were able to install our brand new Welcome to Sullivan sign, which was installed just this afternoon. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him.
Number 6, efficient professional public services. We're running the most efficient public safety government, and as long as I can remember, and probably in several decades. And what we've done, like with our fire department, from now on, when a fireman is hired, they have to do dual purpose. They have to have dual duties. They have to be a paramedic. And that's when I've talked about in our council meetings that we're proposing major cost savings over the next few years in our general fund, especially our fire department, because we want to make sure that our firefighters are also paramedics, because we run a city ambulance service. Well, right now the city of Sullivan budgets $80,000 a year in overtime pay and part-time pay to pay paramedics $13 an hour to come in and run our ambulance. Well, we want to say, look, if you're a full-time firefighter, you have your paramedic credentials, we can start to eliminate some of that. Next year, in 2016, the ambulance is going to be paid off. There's a $30,000 savings. So if we can eliminate $80,000 in overtime and part-time pay, and $30,000 with our ambulance service, that's $110,000 a year savings in just one department, which comes out of the general fund, which is funded by your property taxes. So I think we're moving to efficient public services. Also, one of the biggest public services, talk about efficiency, the trash service. It's a huge accomplishment, I believe, of our administration. We took a nearly $40,000 deficit because we had to pay for a trash truck, we had to pay insurance, and probably the biggest expense is we had to pay dump fees to haul that trash into another county. We don't have any of those expenses anymore. Here's another detriment that a lot of folks don't think about. That trash truck was tearing up our alleys. You thought our roads were bad, which we're trying to take care of that. Take a look at these alleys. And your cars and trucks weren't tearing up these alleys. It was big trucks, especially that dump truck. This past 2 years, we've been able to come in and start to gravel, resurface actually some of the alleyways, and we don't have that being torn up. There's no cats and dogs getting into bags laying next to the road and spreading litter all over the place. There's single stream recycling. Now folks don't have to set their cardboard here, their cans here, their plastic here, and save this here and have 8 piles in your kitchen. You've all seen it. You recycled at home. Now you throw it into one container. Talk about efficiency. But like I said, at the end of the day, you take a $40,000 deficit and turn it into an approximately a $30,000 surplus. $10,000 of that surplus is helping fund Sullivan Central Plaza, connecting the pieces, why we do things. So you have a better service. Nobody got laid off. The folks that were working on the trash truck are now on the street department. That's efficient. Now instead of riding around on a trash truck, we got guys out there actually working on the streets. Item number 7, welcome to Sullivan signs. We tried to do these earlier, but we didn't want to put up, quite frankly, brand new welcome to Sullivan signs on rough surfaces. And we wanted to pinpoint through the comprehensive master plan exactly where folks wanted those signs. Because you can't put that nice of a sign at every single location. You can't have one on Frakes and Johnson and Silver, so we wanted to pinpoint where we wanted it to be. We thought the first welcome to Sullivan sign should be in conjunction with the Wolfe Street project. We were hoping that that welcome to Sullivan sign would have been out in front of McDonald's or out in front of Burger King. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but it is there at the city limits. And when you come across the bridge into the city limits, you see where the 3-lane starts for safety, the bike paths, and the welcome to Sullivan signs. Talk with business and industry to assess their needs. Work with them to encourage ways to expand their business and create job growth, which we can discuss here in a bit. Work with the county and state officials to encourage new opportunities in our community. Well, that's what this $42 million that we're chasing is all about, working with our state officials. That's why the mayor travels. That's why the mayor goes to Kokomo. That's why the mayor needs to travel to Fort Wayne and needs to go to Indianapolis and needs to be active in the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns. I'm proud of the fact that this past year that my peers elected me vice president of the Indiana Conference of Mayors. These aren't Clint Lamb's grand scheme ideas. This was a vision and goals that we set out, and we've had to work with other officials. As far as county officials, I think Sheriff Cotton would agree, and I think your county commissioners would agree. We have the best relationship in a long, long time between city and county government. I work with all 3 county commissioners on the solid waste board, have a great relationship. The county council supported our endeavor with the redevelopment authority. We have been helping and assisting the sheriff's department since they've lost some deputies, try to back them up and do that and things like that. Work with our school system to support and build strong relationships with the youth of our community. They need to see a government at work that ensures a better future for them in Sullivan. This all goes down to taking time to care. It really does. If you remember, when we took office, we were going to host a contest to come up with a brand new city slogan. We were going to have kids at the elementary and at the schools come up with a brand new slogan here in the city. And the more we got to thinking about it, we already had a slogan. I believe the slogan "Take Time to Care" was put in the late 70s, early 80s, and I think it was a J.C.'s and Mayor Donnelly collaboration at the time. I think it was a national campaign that Mayor Donnelly really liked, and he kind of tagged that to the city, to take time to care. There's such an apathetic feeling amongst not just voters, just people in general. We live in a society where it's about Burger King tells you it's your way right away. First Financial Bank, you're always close to home for your convenience. It's a me, me, me society. We want things instantly with our devices, instant gratification. And I think that reflects in some of our young folks. That's why every single year that I've been mayor, I have made it a point to go talk to the JAG students. I talk to 3rd grade. We talk to preschool. We talk to 1st grade. In every discussion is our Take Time to Care speech about what local government can do and how much better it can be with their participation. There's 4,249 people that live here in the city. But I really believe if you get 50 to really care, a lot of these issues take care of themselves. And what I tell all the students every time I get an opportunity to come up and visit with them is, I can't maybe change mom and dad's attitude. I might not be able to change grandpa and grandma's issue, but we can plant a seed of citizenship. It all starts there at that level. So that's what we've tried to do, and quite frankly, these are things that are upon my mind and heart, but until I really looked at this last night, this is exactly what we've been able to do. And you can go through a few more of these. And in closing, as far as our accomplishment, making sure that the citizens of our city know that their input is important and meaningful. The first city website in the city's history, www.citysullivan.org, interactive. The first Facebook page for the city of Sullivan. Whether we like social media or not, it is a way for the future. Now that could be a double-edged sword. If a gal has a sewer stopped up at 1 o'clock in the morning, she can't send a Facebook message to the City of Sullivan Facebook page and expect immediate answer. But there has been a lot of interaction and feedback. Work to have a welcome committee that will assist new residents and give them a welcome packet. That's one campaign promise I didn't keep. We don't have a committee. However, I think the girls at City Hall let you know whenever I see a new resident come in on the sewer, I try to personally stop by their home, don't have a packet, and welcome them to the City of Sullivan. That's part of being a mayor, and that's not anything that the state constitution says you have to do. But the open communication, work with the county, always be respectful to our citizens. And number 6, and I'll close with this. Encourage civic and church groups to assist with local projects to enhance the quality of life in our city. Everything we've done, every accomplishment, we told you in 2011 that we were going to do. We asked for your participation. Whether it's finding your old political opponent from 2007 and asking them to be the director of your transition team, whether it's asking the clergy to come in on Tuesday mornings just for coffee, whether it's working with the Rotary Club or getting a Lions Club to sponsor bricks or buy a new bench for the plaza. what I saw when we come into office, when I would visit with the Rotary, and I'd visit with the Lions Club, and I'd visit with the Chamber, and I'd visit with the Salvation Army, I saw a lot of the same faces in every organization. I said, no, wait a minute. Well, I respect all their individual organizations. How can we harness this? Because a mayor can't do these things by himself. A council can't do it. It does take civic organizations. I think you saw that with the revival, the Revive Sullivan, where clergy came together. Not a city-sponsored event, but the clergy came together and they had a wonderful week. 450 to 600 people coming downtown Sullivan. The civic groups with the Rotary that lit fireworks off at Central Plaza for the Corn Festival. So I think you're starting to see these civic organizations and the church groups harness all our energy, and that's what a comeback's all about. Long answer, I apologize, but
okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
Because you talked about it's through the eyes of the people that used to live here. I'm one of those people. I came back. I've come back. Lived here 20 years ago.
I remember my first interview was with you in 1992.
Yeah. What you're saying though, what you see in the downtown and the activity on the downtown, I mean, a lot of this didn't happen when you happened, because you were mayor, it happened a lot earlier with pockmark areas, but the downtown, from what I see from 24 years ago, I guess, there's just not as much activity. I know Central Cause is part of that. I didn't bring that back, but to the downtown, what do you see to bring that kind of...
Well, first off, you're correct. It is not the city of Sullivan that it was 20 years ago. But you know what? It's a heck of a lot more active downtown than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
If you remember 4 years ago, there was an empty photography studio on the east side of the square. And now there's Mimi's. And it seems to be doing very well. As a matter of fact, she's expanded into Robinson. And now you're seeing an expansion of the coffee cabin, where they bought a building on the north side. Tropical Snow is doing very well. There's a music store. Sun Tropics has opened back up again, and as a matter of fact, their building can't take the capacity, so they've had to move some of their classes up on North Section Street. The Uptown Deli closed for a while, and it's open again. Newsstand seems to be doing very well. Milburn's Pharmacy obviously sees a potential in downtown Sullivan, or Mr. Walker would have never put in the drive-through. You see the Christian school on the square. Access Realty is still down there. If you remember 4 short years ago, some of the things I just mentioned here weren't going on. Goody House has been in business for 40 years and always had carry-out only. Now they're open for lunch. They've actually expanded to the building to the north of them, and they're actually serving a lunch buffet. So while it's not Sullivan it was 20 years ago, no place is what it was 20 years ago. And that's where we have to adapt, because while Sullivan has changed, so has society, so has retail, so has marketing. Honey Creek Square is not what it was 20 years ago. Big box stores like your Targets, your Super Walmarts, that has changed downtown America, not just downtown Sullivan. So while our vision is to never try to recreate what Sullivan was in the 1960s or what Sullivan was in the 1970s, what you've heard me say time and time again, we must find a niche. Whether it's to market our fiber optic line that comes through downtown, which many communities don't have, whether it's to bring residential development to our downtown area, because what you're seeing in quality of life projects, you have to have people. You have to have a demographic to sell to. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first, the business or the people? Everybody says, well, we want to bring businesses downtown. Well, if there's nobody there to sell to, why would the business come? So what, not just I say, what Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, what Dr. Michael Hicks, the most renowned economist in the state of Indiana from Ball State University, and what Indiana Conference Mayors and everything I've read and researched on behalf of the city the last 3 years says, attracting people is the key. Manufacturing since 1980 in the country has been on a steady decline. But yet, do you know what the second largest expense to counties in Indiana is? Economic development. Chasing industry, chasing manufacturers. So our vision for downtown is when you tear down homes with the blight elimination program and you build new homes, which might I add is at the highest it's been the last 3 years, new home construction, than it was the previous decade combined. When you market your A-rated schools, your 4-star schools, when you put in bicycle paths, when you put in sidewalks, you start to overcome that morale. People feel excited again. People want to come to your community. I don't know if you saw tonight's ad in your paper from Follow All Real Estate. Did you read the ad? Take a look at tonight's edition of the Salt Daily Times. The advertisement says, with street upgrades and sidewalks appearing all over town, now's the prime time to list your home. And let's keep this progress flowing. That's the private sector. But like I've said many times before, nobody's riding into the city on a white horse to save us. There's no magical manufacturer going to fall out of the sky. I'm 15 minutes south of an industrial park in Vigo County that has a full-time marketing director, and it has a staff, and it has a board, and it has zoning to protect the industry. It has rail. It has lower sewer rates. It's 20% full. Knox County, as you saw at the unemployment, I should say, expo last week, can't find enough folks to fill their positions. When we planted just 4 simple trees on the south side of the square, we caught, I don't know if I would call it criticism, but a weird comment says, well, Mayor, you're trying to be like Carmel, Indiana. I said, well, is that a bad thing to even pattern yourself after? But while we're not trying to be Carmel, I said, we're actually at an advantage over Carmel, Indiana. And he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, we don't have Westfield to compete with. We don't have Zionsville to compete with. We don't have Fishers to compete with. We don't have Geist. We don't have Noblesville. We can be that clean, vibrant hub. Like we said when we went to the regional cities, we can be the glue between Vigo and Terre Haute and give people a place to live. So a long answer to if you attract people, downtown will start to take care of itself. Downtown is already starting to take care of itself. We've done our part with the first grinding and resurfacing since 1982 in crosswalks. And I think you're going to see here in the next few weeks a major impact getting ready to come downtown.
Now, tied in with the downtown situation, one of the things that I've always noticed around here, with the exception of a handful of restaurants and maybe 1 or 2 businesses outside of the downtown bubble, almost everything on the square closes down about the same time the courthouse does. Mimi's closes by 4. I forget the exact time the Uptown Deli closes. But a lot of it is so focused on the courthouse itself as their kind of main business focus. I know you mentioned something about bringing people and bringing the businesses so they kind of feed off of each other. But if you're going to focus on quality of life projects and try and bring more activity downtown, how are you going to address going into the evening hours after that 5 o'clock hour when everybody comes off work?
Well, this is where common sense comes into play. If I'm a business owner and there's 450 people standing on the square, those are 450 potential customers. If there's 600 people, or whatever the case may be, right out my front door. The mayor can't do everything, but if city government and the Friends of Central Plaza can deliver 400 people to your front door, you've got to want to open it. I can't make those folks stay open after 5 o'clock. However, you would think common sense tells you, when that many people are downtown, that we'll do so much. Government will partner with you. We'll meet you halfway. But you've also got to go that other half with us. Having said that, we're also in talks with businesses that will focus on being open after 4 p.m. There's been a lot of discussions in the Runts building. Those discussions are still ongoing. And it gets frustrating because the wheels of government don't move quite as fast as the private sector. You've got, whether it's federal tax liens, whether it's dealing with property owners, dealing with developers, dealing with the investor, dealing with, like if a business would want to have a liquor license, you have churches on the square that could become a hindrance to that within so many feet. So while we're trying to attract those businesses, you know, tropical snow is an evening business. And I think after talking to some of the business owners, if we start to bring the activity down, they'll stay open. You know, a few of them opened up for May Days and did very well during that day. So, you know, while government can't do it all, we're doing absolutely everything we can. If you'll invest, we'll match your investment and we'll try to drive the traffic.
I've heard some comments. I mean, I know there's a lot going on with the streets right now. I've heard some comments about the timing of it. We're pretty close to the election that it's happening. All these projects are getting completed right before the election. If you could address it.
Well, 2013, there was no election and the square was resurfaced. In 2013, we still had gravel roads north of our Little League diamond, and those were blacktop. In 2013, a non-election year, there was a street, is it Missouri Street? Not Missouri. One of the streets that's south of the city pool that has been gravel forever was blacktop. The Sullivan Square, for the first time since 1982, as I alluded to, was blacktop. We're going to pave every other year. The days of administrations taking care of every Tom, Dick, and Harry because of their last name to pave a block here and pave a block there, those days are over. We will have a road plan and we will focus on areas, regardless of who you are, on traffic flow and how bad the road is. This year in our paving, we tried to attract areas with heavy traffic. We tried to pave areas that were heavily traveled. As far as the timing, your newspaper very well reported back in August that I was trying to pave. But what happened? Wabash Valley Asphalt, the contractor, couldn't get down here. And then we tried to pave the 1st of September, and they moved it to Corn Festival Week. And your paper covered that a lot of folks said, well, you can't do it during Corn Festival Week because there'll be too much traffic. So once again, it was bumped back to end of September. The contractor, Wabash Valley Asphalt, and this is no criticism to the contractor, I want the record to state, you're at the mercy of the contractor. Politically, did it work out? Sure. I'm not going to deny that, but I think I'm getting more credit than really what was in my capabilities.
Anybody else on this, or if we want to move forward?
If
you want to go
And finishing on that,
okay.
Major contractors do all of their state and federal work in the spring and summer. The city of Sullivan and small municipalities get fit in their schedule at their convenience. And I think if you talk to Mr. Jim Burdick or Mr. Warren Arts at Wabash Valley Asphalt, they will let you know that we were trying to do this late summer.
Popping back to something you'd mentioned earlier in the interview, in regards to the annexation attempt a couple of years ago, do you still stand by the decision to attempt to annex the areas around Sullivan?
Absolutely. No judge or no decision will ever convince me that Sullivan Walmart is not in Sullivan, and that Sullivan McDonald's is not in Sullivan, that Sullivan Heights subdivision is not in Sullivan, that Sullivan Automotive Group is not in Sullivan, that Sullivan Family Practice and Sullivan County Community Hospital is not in Sullivan. The activity that we're talking about in these businesses that we fight for on our downtown square, and the Henry Bob's and the Joe's Italian Pizzas and Patrick's Restaurant, the Sullivan Bowling Alley, and Bob Basler and Mark Kelly, and all these places, I still stand by the decision to defend them and say, you're paying the city rate. We think a multi-billion-dollar corporation, Walmart, should pay the same. So absolutely, I stand by that decision.
Would there have been anything different you would have done in the process of trying to explain to people why this was necessary and what you hope to accomplish?
We sent everybody a certified letter that went to their home. Matter of fact, I was going to bring that certified letter and I didn't have time to grab it before I came over here. We sent everybody a very detailed certified letter that explained annexation, it explained the process, and most importantly, it explained the fact that none of their dollars were going to go into the general fund. Every dime collected, if annexation had gone through to the Northwest, keep in mind, annexation was successful to the South. So instead of the first annexation since 1956, we are proud to say that we were successful, that we've had an annexation, but actually back in 2013, 51 acres to the South. Had that gone through, every issue that my critics and our political opponents point to would have been addressed and solved. Had it been successful. Had it been successful. So I find it difficult at times to, I'll be honest with you, to not take it personal. When you get attacked on things that, quite frankly, your political opponents literally had a chance to help you and take care of. And now they're going to criticize you because it's not accomplished. I believe if you receive city fire, city police, city sewer, that you should be in the city. Having said that, when you ask if there's anything we would have done different, I went to people's homes. We actually had a neighborhood chat at somebody's kitchen table, and I told them to bring all their neighbors. I think if any of you know me, know I'm pretty accessible. We offered, we begged, we'll come to your house, we'll come to your kitchen table. No matter how much information we put out, when you haven't done something since 1956, even when it's positive, it's hard for some people to grasp, I think. The goal was to unite people, not divide people, and unfortunately there was some of that. Having said all that, it didn't go through to the Northwest, but we still are faced with the same issues. There's still a fire subsidy. We still have to bring people downtown. We still have to tear down homes. So while we have moved on, there's some folks that haven't. And some of those folks that didn't want to be a part of your city are trying to tell you who your mayor should be. And I think there's a lot of irony in that. Every issue that they criticize us on could have been addressed.
You mentioned earlier about budget cuts. I think you touched on some of them. You know, councils had to cut back the city's budget due to property tax and circuit breakers and things. So what, do you foresee anything coming down the pike that it's going to be?
No, because we addressed ours on day one.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Is there anything
communities
else
have
coming
not.
down the line that you're aware of, or anything you might have to do in the near future? Or
The business
otherwise?
personal property tax. Governor Pence's business personal property tax. I think, I give a lot of credit to the Indiana Indiana Conference of Mayors. Talking to mayors that are in their second and third term that went through that property tax cap debate, they'd never seen a more unified Republican, Democrat mayors come together to fight this, to stop this elimination of the business personal property tax. And I think that's why it was successfully stopped to be statewide. I really attribute that to why the governor went back and said, okay, we'll leave it up to the counties. And it's up to them if they want to allow an abatement for business personal property tax. So that's the only thing that I can foresee. And the aggravation with that, when I asked several businesses and industries around here, how much do you pay in business personal property tax? They couldn't even tell me. So to me, it wasn't an issue really. To me, it was a good Fox News soundbite for the governor to propose a tax cut just for the sake of cutting taxes. You know, we're not exactly left-wing liberal tax and spend folks here in Indiana by any means. But at the same time, we demand public safety. We demand good roads. We demand quality schools. And I don't think folks around here have a problem paying for those things as long as they're run efficient, which we've been able to do.
Can I go back to the annexation? Because I can't give you the specifics. I do remember reading the Federal Appeals Commission, and think there's dates where some of these would run out? Or is there a point that you could see yourself revisiting the annexation issue?
You know, it's not a top priority of our next 4 years. And Senate Bill 330 makes that very difficult, since that's passed last year for municipalities to grow. And that was the discussion I had with Governor Pence, face to face with him. I said, okay, there's an attitude in the legislature that is trying to push back against cities and towns, which I don't understand, because 70% of Indiana Hoosier residents live in an incorporated city or town, 70%. But there has been an attitude kind of against cities and towns. And that's when I asked Governor Pence, I said, well, how can I help myself? You cap property taxes in Indianapolis. You propose a business personal property tax cap or cut. You don't want our cities to grow anymore, physically, by the city limits. And you tell us to go with local option income taxes, but we're at the mercy of the county council. So, how do I help myself? He said, that's a good point. I'm glad to hear from you, and we're gonna look into that. And that's tough, because, and I think my Republican fellow mayors, well, I don't think I know, they totally agree with what we're saying, because there's no Democrat or Republican way to pick up trash. There's no Democrat or Republican way to fund public safety. There's no Democrat or Republican way to remove snow. You know, these are issues, bipartisan issues that we all face, and we don't want to, we've not proposed any tax increases the whole 4 years we've been in office. And for the record, we're not proposing a tax increase for 2016.
This is kind of off of this, but this one.
Ask me,
I've talked to
my
the-
favorite color is blue.
Okay, I've talked to you about this before, but I think, where I come from, small town, circle in Indianapolis, it's growing, but it's because Indianapolis is growing. Without Terre Haute, I mean, do you tie the unemployment problem, some of those problems with what's going on, that Terre Haute's not growing? I mean, does that hinder what you can do?
It does hinder, but I'm gonna be politically incorrect here. You gotta wanna work. An elected official, that's not popular to say. And maybe people think that I'm awful, way out in left field. But when your city hasn't physically grown since 1956, when you haven't had a comprehensive master plan since 1945, when, as you've heard me say before, when every time you pick up the paper you hear about high unemployment, when you see another meth lab getting busted, when you go to Walmart and you can tell the person in front of you is on drugs, that's a morale issue. And not to get onto a religious tangent by any means, but as a person of faith, I believe that all of our issues are spiritual issues. Whether it's funding or whether it's just caring, taking time to care. And the only way we're going to overcome unemployment is we have to take a long, hard look at ourselves and say, are we willing to invest in ourselves first? Are we willing to inspire our young folks up at the elementary school? Are we willing to get people to start caring again? And maybe it's just a sidewalk. Maybe it's just some trees on the square. Well, to a lot of folks might think that's petty. That's where it starts. We can build a $2.3 million civic center and not get near the social media likes as a welcome to Sullivan sign when you pull in. So one thing I've learned as mayor, you gotta stay focused on the little things. You gotta keep people engaged. If I don't have anybody to care with me, I can't do this. So, while that might sound long-winded, it affects unemployment. It really does. If you can give people some hope and a reason to start caring again, they'll seek employment. And the jobs are there. On the other side of that coin, Andy, we can take this to another level. Are the jobs paying here in Indiana? Our politicians in Indianapolis keep talking about a low unemployment rate. But are they quality jobs? Can you afford childcare with that? Can you afford health care with that income, with that wage?
Well, you can say those are, but how do you bring those jobs here?
I think they have to come from within. As I said, manufacturing in the country has been on the decline since 1980. And Sullivan County is competing with 3,100 counties in the country right now for that declining manufacturer who's not really relocating and not really opening. So what you do is you create an environment where you have young millennials that can come together, like in these think tanks, like Lunch Fishers or Lunch Terre Haute. You're starting to see the money is made from small business. 70% of people are employed by small business. And that's the way, not Sullivan, don't take my information, but statistics are showing that's where job growth is. And that's where good paying jobs are coming from. So there's some national issues you have to compete with as well.
And building off of the whole notion of bringing people into Sullivan, dealing with millennials, dealing with people who are moving here for quality of life issues, do you foresee any type of situation where the city would pass any kind of ordinances regarding protections for people who are homosexual or transgender of that nature?
It's not really been an issue that's been brought up to our office. So I really don't have a whole lot of, quite frankly, I don't hear any discussion about it, any chatter about it. So to be honest with you, I'm not bypassing it. I just don't have much of a stance on that. At the same time, I want to make sure that people know that everybody's accepted. Personally, here in the city of Sullivan, whether you're gay, straight, Pentecostal, Baptist, whatever you are, whether you're black, white, Asian, I feel you're accepted. I can't speak for all the residents of the community, because I think I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that there wasn't some racial and maybe homophobic issues in our community. How that affects the Sullivan City Mayor's office, that's yet to be seen.
Okay, well, I guess we won't just go like that. Okay, well, I guess we won't just go like that. Leave it there and go, if you are elected, what are some of the priorities in the initial stages of your office when your second term would start?
Second term is to complete a lot of what we've already started. Second term is to continue sidewalks, which have been going on for 3 years. That wasn't just recently with the election. To continue blacktopping whenever the asphalt can get down here and do that, and whenever road funding comes available. Real quick on that, that's another issue, state issue. The federal gas tax has not been increased since 1993. The state gas tax has not been increased since 2003. Cars are more fuel efficient. We're driving Civics and Priuses. So there's a decline in revenue that funds local roads and streets. And I want to make this very clear. No local road and street money is being used at Sullivan Central Plaza. And we're doing the best we can, which is another reason we're paving every other year, which is why we paved in 2013. We didn't pave in 2012 because it was my first year in office and I wanted to evaluate the state of the city. So we had the funding to do some paving in 13, so we did it. Understood that I wanted to be able to get more bang for my buck, so we're going to hold off a year. The money from 14 we encumber into 15. And we're able to do twice as much at the same time with the county. So we're going to continue that trend of paving every other year. We're going to continue the trend of pouring sidewalks. We're going to continue the trend of eliminating eyesores and nasty abandoned homes. We're going to continue the trend to entice private investment with quality of life projects. A lot of this would be for next week, but here in the city, and we've alluded to this in some of the redevelopment commission meetings, we've been in talks with a private major developer, which does development all over the country. And last year, this developer applied for what they call federal historic tax credits to 2 undisclosed properties here in the city of Sullivan. They came to an agreement with the property owners. They put together a package. They looked at all the things that the city was doing. They took into consideration the plaza, all of the amenities in the area, and they are awarded on a point system. And the point system that they had to get to was 161 points when you add up all the different variables. They got to 156. And they spent a year in Sullivan. They talked to a lot of folks here in Sullivan. They put a lot of time, effort, energy, and spent some dollars here in Sullivan to get to that point. And they still believe in Sullivan, which is why they're getting ready to apply a second time. This November 1st, their application is due. Out of all the properties, out of all the projects that they're doing, the city of Sullivan rates the highest in their point totals. They saw where that 5-point deficit came from last year, and they feel 99% confident that they have overcome that. So that's going to be a major project that's going to be going on over the next 4 years, working with that development. And I wish I could sit here and tell you all the details, but there's about 6 parcels, and 3 of the property owners have already signed purchase agreements, and we have another 3 that we're awaiting. But you're going to be hearing a lot more about that next week. So that's a project. The exciting part is you saw what local government could do over the first 4 years, and you saw local government and civic organizations and churches come together, and you're starting to see that attitude. While we still have the skeptics out there and the ones that make outlandish remarks and just crazy off-the-wall things, the average Joe feels hope and sees something happening again. And that trend's going to continue. And it's going to be a heck of a story to tell after the end of our next 4 years, that there was the community with the highest unemployment. There was the community that was always all over the news for drugs. And wow, look what they did in Sullivan. And it's going to be a heck of a story to tell. So we want to continue with the things I mentioned, but put an emphasis on private investment, in private dollars. Whether it's Mike Olson building homes, whether it's Dr. Dupree building new homes, whether it's a development firm coming in and building homes. And I want to open up this invitation. You don't have to be from Indianapolis to come down here and invest. You don't have to be from Chicago to come down here and buy properties. If folks here in the city of Sullivan want to partner with local government, if they want to partner with the mayor's office and the redevelopment commission, our door's open. We will do everything in our ability, continue to do, to entice local folks to invest in ourselves. A frustrating part is when we talk about trying to attract families and trying to bring people here, there's a few families out at Greenbrier that I can't get to admit that they're in Sullivan. But I still have the task that I'm supposed to bring others in. Everybody wants something for nothing. Everybody thinks that the mayor can wave a magic wand and bring in a business. That can't happen. But we will work with you to create an environment where if you would like to invest your time, your energy, your blood and sweat and tears, and your dollars in the city, I'm behind you 100%, and I'll walk every step of the way with you.
And one other thing I wanted to talk to you about. With Max Judson's recent resignation from the Board of Public Works after he's been accused of voter fraud and witness tampering, how would you address any other instances of public corruption that may come up if you win the re-election?
Well, I guess that depends on what the issue is. As far as future, I mean, you really can't cross that bridge until you come to it. I mean, if there is any type of founded public corruption in any of city government, it'll be addressed at that time.
Others, here's the, off your, off the
I
list.
think we've hit several of them.
through
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
I can't think of any really right now. Is there anything, Jim, you'd want to?
No, I think we've covered it.
I try to make it where you don't have to ask very many questions.
Oh, I could, if you're in a debate situation, like on the presidential stage, I could see where they'd be giving you you'd be like, at the Oscars, I think.
But I appreciate this forum because the mayor's office is very complex. And there's nothing like it. I went to college to be a school teacher, and I also worked in the private sector. And I can't really compare it to really anything. Sure, you're an executive, but at the same time, you're a servant of the people. And at the same time, you have to answer to the residents. And at the same time, you have to answer to you and your friends in the media. And you have to address your media friends differently. What you say to the television, you get 8 seconds. What I like about the printed press is we can have these discussions, long discussions. What I like about the radio, the first of the month, that's an accomplishment. We try to be very transparent. We have a 30-minute radio show that first Friday of every month that we're able to come on and have these chats because I think we've always been accessible because we're very transparent and I've actually been criticized and told that we get the details to a fault. Because what I found, the average citizen, can maybe get lost in all those details. It's hard for a mayor to keep it all straight at times. So overall, I think the state of the city is good. In closing, we mentioned the paths to progress. Love that. The people love that. Highest new home construction in a decade. Over $2 million in awards and grants. A budget surplus for 4 straight years. So talking about the tax caps, we still have been able to run efficient government and we've been able to do these things without a tax increase and a budget surplus. We've tore down 12 homes with the They Gotta Go program, going to eliminate a lot more at the VEP. We discussed the trash service. And as far as the Central Plaza, year to date, we've had approximately $26,000 in pledges, contributions, and rental agreements. So it is bringing revenue in to the city. The first comprehensive master plan since '45. The employment expo to take care of unemployment. The fun little thing, as far as an accomplishment, the mayor's snowman contest. I think that's pretty neat over the last 2 years to get folks to be able to come outside. And the Keep It Rolling event, which was up at the Sullivan bowling lanes to make sure families could get out and bowl and keep moving. The Summer Splash, which was down at the city pool. The state constitution says the mayor has to do 2 things. Prepare a budget and give a state of the city once a year. I think we've blown that away. We don't have to do the things we're doing. We do it because we care. The ice cream socials that we've done. The first one I mentioned, plus we did another one this year at our May Days. Building bathrooms down at the city park, which those are still under construction. The city Facebook page. Putting handicapped accessible at the pool. Making sure that there was the little things like mulch, because the mayor gets the calls when mom takes her son down or kids down to the park and it's too muddy because the mulch has gone away. So while I have to answer your questions on tax caps and annexation, I have to talk to mom about why the kids got real muddy down there. So that's a neat thing about being mayor. We did talk about the first city website ever. Wolfe Street upgrade since 1973. Blacktopping the square, welcome Sullivan signs. 6 ribbon cuttings of new businesses and expansions in the last 18 months. So that pretty much, I think, we covered it all.
The 26,000 year to date for the Civic Center, or no?
Those are pledges and contributions.
Okay, and it's not, does that include also renting out that space?
Yes.
Is that within that? Okay. And,
But we haven't even marketed it yet.
yeah.
That's the neatest part. The private dollars are coming in. Actually, Mr. Schellinger, who came down, he's buying $500 brick, and the brick sells for the patio, so,
But then, can you, give maybe an update on, the second phase, but when you might believe that would actually get completed?
we'd like to start construction in the spring or early summer of 2016. Right now, when I talked about how we've already been awarded or received over $2 million from federal awards and grants. But we're also in the process of seeking this $1 million stormwater grant, which one of the campaign promises was to address the middle portion of Section Street. That $1 million grant will address a lot of the area there on Section Street out in front of Rusk's to get all that stormwater that collects and get that out of there. So if we're awarded, and I feel very confident we'll get that because it's disaster relief money from 2008 that's left over that quite frankly very few communities are still applying for because the projects are over. So once that's awarded and the $400,000 downtown redevelopment grant, the $400,000 CDBG grant that we're in the process of applying for, we'll have received $3.4 million in grants and awards. You asked me a question to start that.
No, it was about when you could foresee,
Okay.
the second phase being.
And then the third grant that we're in, that's right, I want to tell you those two grants we're pursuing. The third grant we're pursuing is the Amphitheater Grant. It's $100,000. Kenna Consultants have been working on this, researching this for us, because if you saw in the early renditions of Central Plaza, there is a staging area or an amphitheater area to have year-round music or events, magicians, comedians, whatever. Phase 2 of that plaza will also be water features, walking paths. Phase 2 has really already started with the Wi-Fi. It's a hotspot down there now. You can actually go down there after school, which I think is a really neat, start talking about connecting the pieces. The school corporation issued these iPads to a lot of our kids. What, was it last year, the year before?
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
I think RCA was the last one.
But you know there's still a lot of Sullivan kids that don't have internet in their homes. So we're hoping to see that even after school, that kids can come down there and get on the Wi-Fi there while mom can walk on the walking paths. And what you hope happens is, you know, when people congregate, is when people spend dollars in your downtown.
But given your best guess, when do you think the whole project would be done?
I hope the whole project is never done while I'm mayor.
Okay.
My goal and vision is that this thing, it's not about this administration. Phase 2, I'm hoping to see that done within the next year and a half.
Okay.
I will tell you this, something will start on it in the spring. Whether it's just the walking paths or whether it's just the amphitheater. Something will start in the spring of 16. But I hope this is a project that never ends. I hope this is a project that the phases continue and continue and continue. And I hope they expand beyond Central Plaza. Because while it seems like political verbiage or rhetoric to maybe some of you, because you've heard it over the last 4 years, it's the truth. It's genuine. It's exactly what we set forth to do. It's happening. And you can't argue with it. You're seeing a better square than was 3 years ago. You're seeing new roofs on people's homes, new windows. You're seeing new retaining walls. Drive around. You're seeing people do these things on their own. And that's, I think, the greatest accomplishment. Seeing people buy in.